Representative Bill Johnson, co-chair of the caucus, to come up and give some brief remarks before he has to head out to the next event.
Well, I do apologize that I've got to leave a little bit early. The Secret Service and the First Lady have kind of thrown some wrinkles in my evening, and if I don't get to where I'm supposed to get to shortly, they're going to lock me out. And not even I, the Demining Caucus co-chair, can open that door once it closes. So, but hey, welcome everybody and good evening. I want to thank you all for joining us today in recognition of International Mine Awareness Day. Now, you know that happened on April 4th. As co-chair of the UXO Demining Caucus, along with my colleague Congresswoman Houlahan, I'm very pleased that we can come together to celebrate the great achievements that have been made over the past year to address the impact of landmines and other explosives, as well as reflect on the official work that remains yet to be done. In 60 countries, 60, these lethal devices continue to claim lives, including the lives of far too many young children simply doing what children do and should be able to continue to do, whether that's play outside or walk to school. We see news of these dangers every day from Ukraine, where hundreds of U.S.-supported deminers are already hard at work throughout the country, working quickly to allow families to return home, for farmers to replant their fields, and for reconstruction to take place in areas liberated from Russian control. That was not a mine exploded back there. That was just But we must continue to stand with families living in countries that have fallen out of the headlines yet continue to suffer from the presence of mines, such as Sri Lanka, which I hope will see mine-free status in the next few years. We're getting closer and closer. In addition to Angola, Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia. I'm proud that there continues to be growing support in Congress for these programs, with 55. Got some new ones today. 55 bipartisan members now serving on this caucus. And I'll continue to work to protect funding for these valuable programs. This year, 112 members of Congress joined the letter I led with Congresswoman Hullahan to the State and Foreign Operations Appropriations Subcommittee, supporting $290 million for global demining and weapons security programs. You can clap for that, I think. Because you can't do this work without money. These programs not only save lives, but support security and stability worldwide. This is an issue that I hope will continue to see bipartisan support here in Congress. I believe it will. And I thank the State Department, the Department of Defense, USAID, and all of the implementing partners for their work on this important issue. So thank you again for joining us this evening. I hope you'll take a few minutes to continue checking out the exhibits, the cutting-edge equipment, virtual reality experience, the interactive displays, and even our demining dog team back in the back. So check all of that out. A special thanks to our guest speakers, Jessica Lewis, Assistant Secretary for the Political Military Affairs Bureau at the State Department, and Mr. Sean Burke, the Program Manager for Humanitarian Demining Research and Development Program at the Department of Defense. My co-chair, Congresswoman Hullahan, will be here shortly. She'll pick up where I left off, but thank you all so very much for coming. This is an important cause. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Congressman. As you mentioned, we'll continue with the rest of our program in about 15 minutes, so continue chatting and checking out the exhibits, and we'll be back momentarily.
Caucus, along with my colleague Congresswoman Houlahan, I'm very pleased that we can come together to celebrate the great achievements that have been made over the past year to address the impact of landmines and other explosives, as well as reflect on the official work that remains yet to be done. In 60 countries, 60, these lethal devices continue to claim lives, including the lives of far too many young children simply doing what children do and should be able to continue to do, whether that's play outside or walk to school. We see news of these dangers every day from Ukraine, where hundreds of U.S.-supported deminers are already hard at work throughout the country, working quickly to allow families to return home, for farmers to replant their fields, and for reconstruction to take place in areas liberated from Russian control. That was not a mine exploded back there. That was just a... But we must continue to stand with families living in countries that have fallen out of the headlines yet continue to suffer from the presence of mines, such as Sri Lanka, which I hope will see mine-free status in the next few years. We're getting closer and closer. In addition to Angola, Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia. I'm proud that there continues to be growing support in Congress for these programs, with 55. Got some new ones today. 55 bipartisan members now serving on this caucus. And I'll continue to work to protect funding for these valuable programs. This year, 112 members of Congress joined the letter I led with Congresswoman Hullahan to the State and Foreign Operations Appropriations Subcommittee, supporting $290 million for global demining and weapons security programs. You can clap for that, I think. Because you can't do this work without money. These programs not only save lives, but support security and stability worldwide. This is an issue that I hope will continue to see bipartisan support here in Congress. I believe it will. And I thank the State Department, the Department of Defense, USAID, and all of the implementing partners for their work on this important issue. So thank you again for joining us this evening. I hope you'll take a few minutes to continue checking out the exhibits, the cutting-edge equipment, virtual reality experience, the interactive displays, and even our demining dog team back in the back. So check all of that out. A special thanks to our guest speakers, Jessica Lewis, Assistant Secretary for the Political Military Affairs Bureau at the State Department, and Mr. Sean Burke, the Program Manager for Humanitarian Demining Research and Development Program at the Department of Defense. My co-chair, Congresswoman Hullahan, will be here shortly. She'll pick up where I left off, but thank you all so very much for coming. This is an important cause. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Congressman. As you mentioned, we'll continue with the rest of our program in about 15 minutes, so continue chatting and checking out the exhibits, and we'll be back momentarily. The other co-chair of the caucus, Congresswoman Hullahan, to give some brief remarks.
Thank you. Hey everyone, it's terrific to be with you. I'm sure you've had a long day. I'm glad that you can be here and imbibe and meet one another. I'm very, very pleased to be able to be here tonight, and very, very pleased to be able to be the co-chair of this really important caucus, and sadly always timely. I want to make sure that I also thank the State Department, USAID, and the Defense Department and all our partners for their commitment to making sure that this organization is valued, and that we continue to support all the organizations that are thinking about this very important issue. Some of the organizations who are here tonight as well is the Halo Trust, MAG, Humanity and Inclusion, Peace Trees Vietnam, Tetra Tech, and APOPO, or POPO. The theme for the United Nations Mine Awareness Day is right now, Mine Action Cannot Wait. And as bombs continue to fall across Ukraine, as mines continue to threaten the lives of Colombians and Nagorno, Iraq and beyond, and explosive materials and weapons continue to flow across our borders, or many borders, fueling violence at the hands of criminal groups, I very much agree with this sentiment, which is that mine action cannot wait. Fortunately, the U.S. is taking action, and we continue to be the world's leading funder of mine action. So every day, men and women wearing the U.S. flag are providing life-saving messages of risk education that brings communities together, that ensures that survivors of mine accidents will get the rehabilitative care that they need, and that is racing to eliminate explosives before they are detonated by an innocent child. And by investing in these programs, and even more closely by coordinating across the State Department, USAID, and the Department of Defense, the U.S. can continue to promote positive leadership abroad. So I'm really very glad to see the progress that we're making in removing U.S. legacy contamination across Southeast Asia, and in the opening of new programs to address World War II explosives in the Solomon Islands, and the continued commitment to the innocent people of Afghanistan who continue to live encircled by these improvised explosive devices. So with the U.S. support, I understand that over 150,000 landmines have now been cleared from Zimbabwe, a country which can soon achieve mine impact-free status, and that all of the IEDs left by ISIS in the Bekaa Valley in the northeast of Lebanon will be removed as of this year as well. From the West Bank to the Horn of Africa, from Yemen to Guatemala, demining and weapons security management for programs are allowing families to live once again in safety. We certainly have a lot of work ahead of us to create a mine-free world, but I very much look forward to continuing to expand this caucus and to using this position, my position here on this caucus, but also on the Armed Services Committee, to ensure that these efforts will continue to receive the support that they need. I'm very grateful for being here today. I am sorry for being late today, but I have the opportunity to pass it back over to Kat for the further conversations that we'll be having.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman. Next, I would like to invite Assistant Secretary Jessica Lewis. She's the Assistant Secretary for the Political Military Affairs Bureau at the Department of State.
First of all, thank you so much for having me here tonight. It really is an honor to once again address the Congressional UXO Caucus. I was here last year, and I know that it was Senator Leahy's last year, and I'm just so thrilled for the ongoing and continued bipartisan support for the incredible work that all of you do. And I'm thrilled to be back. I'm very excited to see the mine detecting dog Rico, who I understand is here. And I know he's a great draw. On a more serious note, I wouldn't want to miss addressing this very important annual event commemorating International Mine Awareness Day. Your work is critical to bring key stakeholders together across the humanitarian demining community, celebrating the progress we've made and highlighting the work that still needs to be done. This multifaceted issue demands a broad-based approach, and we have many of the key players here tonight. I've had a chance to walk around a little bit and get to talk to a few of you. But I use the word multifaceted because we're not just talking about the removal of landmines or unexploded ordnance or UXO. These weapons of war have ripple effects that impact entire communities. Not only do they harm women, children, and farmers, they severely damage local communities, destroy livelihoods, and contaminate productive land that could be used for education, farming, conservation, recreation, tourism, and travel. These effects persist for decades, long after conflict has passed. Our humanitarian mine action efforts make a real-world impact for people and countries across the globe, helping them recover vast tracts of land to build a better and brighter future. And I'd like to give you a snapshot of some of the work that we are doing and why it matters. As you know, one of the defining national security challenges we are facing is Russia's further invasion of Ukraine, so I'd like to start there. Since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of February 2022, in addition to the over $35 billion in security assistance that we have provided to Ukraine, we have committed more than $91.5 million to help the government of Ukraine address the urgent humanitarian challenge posed by explosive remnants of war. These explosive hazards block access to farmland, slow the distribution of humanitarian assistance, impede reconstruction efforts, prevent displaced people from returning to their homes, and continue to kill and maim innocent civilians. I have to say, there are many horrors in the war, but one of the things that I was particularly horrified was when we learned about the extensive way that Russians were placing mines into areas that were clearly only targeted at civilians. The government of Ukraine estimates that 174,000 square kilometers of territory may be contaminated. This is more than twice the size of Austria or slightly larger than the state of Illinois. This problem will tragically persist for a long time after the war, but the international community's attention to this issue and Ukraine's prioritization of it means we're on the right track. Our investment now will pay dividends long into the future and give the Ukrainian people another reason to hold on to hope. And I just need to say again, thank you to Congress for the ongoing bipartisan support for these efforts. Ukraine may capture most of the current conversation in the news, but humanitarian demining is truly a global mission. On April 4th, the Undersecretary for Arms Control and International Security, my boss, Bonnie Jenkins, released the U.S. government's annual To Walk the Earth in Safety. So in case any of you have not picked this up, this is important every year, but I think this year in particular, given everything that's going on in the world, I hope you have a chance to read through it and see all of the achievements over the past year through fiscal year 2022. And many of you here know these accomplishments well because you have done the work to carry them out. But TWEAS highlights many of the ways communities and people around the world have overcome the adversity of post-conflict challenges. And with U.S. funding, our partners tirelessly discover and destroy landmines, IEDs, and UXO. They also help us destroy or secure small arms and light weapons that could be illicitly proliferated, as well as unserviceable ammunition, which poses the danger of detonating and causing catastrophic consequences for civilians living in proximity to these dangerous depots. It is a hard job, but one with a big payoff for people's lives and well-being. The United States is the global leader in humanitarian demining, and in fiscal 2022 alone, the United States supported conventional weapons destruction efforts in more than 65 countries and areas with more than $376 million. I'd like to give you a few more examples of the real-world impact our programs are having around the world. In Colombia, the prolonged armed conflict has significantly degraded the natural environment. Landmines and explosive remnants of war make large tracts of land unusable. Conflict and instability also facilitate the cultivation of illicit crops, as well as illegal mining and resource extraction. Colombia has seen, however, several recent success stories where land release has positively contributed to local environmental resilience. In central Colombia, the Association of Women's Cacao Growers, I'm going to try to pronounce this correctly, Acubarab, was founded 7 years ago to heal the damage caused by violence to women and their families. Currently, the association is made up of 11 women, some of whom are heads of family and others of whom are elderly and disabled. Together, they plant coffee and, not coca, cocoa on land released through humanitarian demining. Their progress has led to significant job growth in areas with high unemployment, helped local women earn an income, and restored the agricultural capacity of the region. Their work demonstrates how humanitarian mine action in support of environmental restoration can lead to economic growth. I also think this is something that we're really taking a close look at. There is an interesting and very important interrelation between demining and unexploded and demining and making an environmental impacts, and something that I think that we need to understand better and further. We have many other examples, but I just want to end by saying since 1993, the United States has consistently been the world's leader financial supporter of conventional weapons destruction, providing more than $4.6 billion in assistance to more than 120 countries. U.S. taxpayers should be proud of this accomplishment and how it advances U.S. interests abroad. And I just want to say thank you again to our congressional leadership, but also to everybody in the room for all the work you do. Thanks so much.
Invite Mr. Sean Burke, the Program Manager for the Humanitarian Demining Research and Development Program, up to the podium for a few remarks.
Good evening. It's great to be here tonight. We've been part of this event now for many years, minus the couple COVID years that probably prohibited it. But we really appreciate being here, and I want to thank all of you for doing a great job in what we call humanitarian mine action and so forth. I want to particularly thank Kristen. I know a lot of work goes into this. She should get a hand here if we could, please. And Dave, I know Maggie put a lot of effort into this as well, so please give them a hand and we'll start with that. Last year, I stood a much larger room, but I don't know if you remember, Kristen, Senator Leahy stood right beside me during the whole, it was kind of intimidating, as I was trying to speak. And I'm like, well, Tom knows I was rewriting my speech all day long, and finally I got to the podium and I just completely went off script, so I'm going to do that again tonight. I thanked him for the instrumental part he played in the beginning of our program, which has now been in existence for 28 years, and Senator Leahy took that lead and talked about how he said, wow, thank you, Sean, and let me tell you a story about how I was instrumental in starting the State Department program, which I found very fascinating. But somebody asked me the other day, why have you been doing what you've been doing so long? Because I really started the program back in 95. I was with the program in 95, and I came back to it after running a development program back in the early 2000s, and I've been with it since. And I thought about it, and I remember a time when I was back in Thailand, and we were looking at the technologies that we had provided in the field, and we're driving down the road, and we're on the border between Thailand and Cambodia. Okay, so if you all want to know why we do what we do, just listen to this story. So we're driving down the road, we see this big jungle. If you look at some of the pictures with the vegetation in our display over here, you can see that this monstrous jungle. People haven't been in these areas, these mined areas, for years, since back when the Khmer Rouge and so forth were going on in Southeast Asia. So I saw all these minefields and this vegetation, felled trees, termite mounds, all kinds of debris. Then we went a little bit further down the road and we see some of the technologies we provided them, and they were actually taking down the trees and carried out the felled trees and really making an impact on the vegetation there. And you go a little bit further down the field, then you see this big open field that the trees have been removed. And we're like, wow, you could see the progression as you went down the road. This now was a beautiful field, but it was still had mines and UXO in it. And then we went a little bit further and we saw the manual teams working in the minefield. And we said, wow, this is really progression. And then we got to the last point, and the farm fields were actually already planted and plants were growing. And a family was standing there thanking us because the father of the family had one leg. He had lost his leg in those minefields. And they are already planted tapioca, and the crops were coming up. And I said, that's why I do what we do. So let me tell you a little bit about our program. The U.S. Humanitarian Demining Research Development Program is part of the U.S. Army C5 ISR Center located at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, just down the road. Our program supports global humanitarian mine action and is focused on technology development. We are DoD's technology providers, and our aim is to assist in solving the global demining problem. Our program designs, develops, demonstrates new technologies to improve safety and efficiency in humanitarian demining. Although our primary responsibility is to support our geographic combatant commands and our troops in the areas that they're working in their humanitarian mine action programs, we heavily support the priorities of various partners, to include Halo Trust, Mines Advisory Group, Norwegian People's Aid, Opopo, Golden West. And this goes a long way in eradicating mines around the world. Our program provides innovative technologies to the NGOs through what we call operational field evaluations, or OFEs for short. The NGOs use these technologies in live minefields and UXO contaminated areas as part of the day-to-day demining operations. These technologies significantly increase their ability to detect and clear mines in UXO around the world. The NGOs provide us feedback on performance and sustainability, which is later used to help our program make future investment decisions and improve the technologies that we have in the field. Our program is funded by the U.S. Army at nearly $9 million annually. However, we've been extremely fortunate to receive congressional plus-ups totaling $32 million over the last 3 years. In fact, most of the technologies depicted on our display this evening were made possible by these plus-ups. The NGOs mentioned earlier and our other partner demining organizations are using these technologies today in U.S. priority countries. Our program has been providing new technology for nearly 28 years. Can't believe I've been with the program this long. Do I look that old?
No.
And is directly responsible for the clearance of over 400,000 mines in UXO in 44 different countries. These technologies are directly responsible for the clearance of over 103 million square meters of land. We finally passed the 100 million mark this last year. 103 million square meters of land. Today, we have 95 different technologies and detection and clearance technologies in 15 countries around the world. Although significant progress continues to be made, challenging new threats are emerging in areas of conflict around the world. The HDR&D program will continue the development of new state-of-the-art technologies to promote stability and assist with the eradication of mines in UXO. Thank you again for your time and allowing me to be here tonight, and have a great evening. I think I'm the last speaker, so enjoy.
Every day, in 60 countries around the world, lives are threatened and dreams are shattered by the silent threat of landmines and explosive remnants of war. These hidden dangers continue to cast a shadow over communities struggling to rebuild after years of conflict. To commemorate this Mine Awareness Day, we are shining a light on the extraordinary efforts being made by U.S. government partners to eradicate these deadly devices and create a safer future for millions of people across the globe. Thanks to the unwavering commitment of the United States Congress, the State Department, USAID, and the Department of Defense, the U.S. is making significant strides in eradicating and addressing the impact of these threats. From Ukraine to Colombia, from the Solomon Islands to Nagorno-Karabakh, brave deminers work tirelessly locating and removing these hazardous remnants one by one. As a result, families can once again walk the streets without fear, and children can play in safety. Farmlands once deserted are now thriving with new growth, providing sustenance and livelihoods for generations to come. But our efforts go beyond clearing land. We are also dedicated to educating communities on the risks of mines and providing essential rehabilitative care to mine accident survivors. Together, we are helping to heal the wounds of war and building a brighter future. U.S. conventional weapons destruction programs ensure the security of vulnerable weapon stockpiles, preventing them from falling into the wrong hands and endangering the lives of our military service members and allies. These efforts promote stability and address root causes of violence, from Libya and Mozambique to the Northern Triangle. Today, deminers and equipment from American companies like John Deere, Caterpillar, and Bobcat, adorned with the U.S. flag, stand as a testament to our nation's positive leadership and dedication to humanitarian demining. And we remain steadfast in our resolve to create a world where families can live, work, and dream without the fear of hidden dangers. Let us remember the stories of those who have been affected by these terrible weapons and honor their courage and resilience. Together, we can ensure that their sacrifices are not in vain and that future generations will inherit a world free from the scourge of landmines. This Mine Awareness Day, let us celebrate our achievements and reaffirm our commitment to continued action. With each passing moment, millions of men, women, and children are at risk of stepping upon a deadly device. But it doesn't have to be this way. Join us in our mission to build a safer, more secure world for all. Mine action cannot wait.